If it stays on course, Ireland will have just under $2 billion in surplus to play with next year. So should it invest the money or save it for a rainy day? Well, that was the question our very own Owen Fairclough put to Irish economist Fergal O'Brien.
One of the legacies of the crisis that we're now facing is that our investment level in the economy is incredibly low. Interestingly, Ireland has the fastest growing population of any country in Europe, but we have the second lowest level of investment. And one of the features of the crisis years was that we really cut back on our capital spending across the economy. So on our infrastructure spending, on our innovation, on our education spending, we really curtailed that investment component of the economy, and we need to start building it up again. We're still going to run a modest deficit this year. We almost have the budget deficit closed, and we'll close it over the next couple of years. We're going to run a modest budget deficit this year, but we've plenty of room for manoeuvre to start investing ambitiously in the future.
Do you think there are likely to be dissenting voices, perhaps in the Irish government, that would look at the experience of the last 5 years, a terrible recession, a bailout, and say, we need a cushion, we need a financial cushion, we should not be splurging any extra cash?
Ireland now, for the first time in 2016, is going to face the full set of the new EU fiscal rules. And a lot of Irish people don't fully understand what these will mean yet, but essentially it's putting a very strong external brake on how much money the government can spend. From a business perspective, our argument to government and the European Commission would be that those rules make sense for the day-to-day spending and taxation decisions, so that we don't go back to make the same mistakes that we made in many ways led us into this crisis.
A banker once told me that he thinks it takes around 10 years for people to forget the effects of a severe recession. Is there any danger that Ireland might just throw caution to the wind and you end up having this boom and bust cycle that you did of the last 10 or 15 years or so?
I'm not sure about the bankers only remembering 10 years, and that's absolutely quite possible. I know my own dad remembered the tales from the Great Depression from the 1930s, so I think there is probably a deep ingrained legacy that we're all going to take with us in terms of the lessons of this crisis. I think we're very conscious in Ireland that we can't overspend, that we have to be sensible with our budgets, that we shouldn't blow any spare resources we have on either too much pay or too much day-to-day spending. But at the same time, I think we understand the difference between that day-to-day extravagance that perhaps we can't afford and the need to invest for the future.
What do Irish people, when they look at a country like Greece, think Greece is likely to have a third bailout, hundreds of billions of euros, and yet they can't seem to get a grip on their economy? And Ireland did it with one bailout. Is there any resentment there among Irish people that Greece is getting an easier ride?
I think the economies in Europe that found themselves in financial difficulty are all very different in terms of what was causing their crisis. In an Irish context, it was very much an old-fashioned real estate bubble and bust that infected the financial sector and ultimately caused trouble for the public finances. But there's no doubt many Irish citizens are looking at the fate of Greece and reflecting that, yes, we made a lot of the right decisions. We got to grips with our public finances really quickly. We made tough decisions at great cost to Irish householders, to Irish businesses, to the jobs that were lost. But we made them quickly. We got our competitiveness back. We got optimism
they're not resentful.
And back into the economy.
And the Irish aren't resentful?
They're not resentful. You know, of course, there's been disagreement on how some of the austerity was delivered. We have had protests against user charges, such as people having to pay for their water for the first time. But ultimately, these decisions had to be taken. And at the end of the day, I think we've made the correct decisions on how to manage the crisis, manage the economy, and put us on a road to recovery that will put people back to work and ultimately make Ireland a more prosperous country.